United States of America commemorates Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination. Martin Luther King Jr., born Michael King Jr. on January 15, 1929 to April 4, 1968, was an American Baptist minister and activist who was a central figure in the civil rights movement until his assassination in 1968. Dr. King, a black church leader and the son of early civil rights activist and minister Martin Luther King Sr., advanced civil rights for racial minorities in the United States through nonviolence and civil disobedience, inspired by his Christian beliefs and nonviolent activism. Every year, the United States acknowledges the tragic event that occurred on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in 1968. On April 4, 2023, the event was held at the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. This year's commemoration had in attendance the entire King family, speakers, special performances, a fraternal tribute, the changing of the balcony wreath, and a moment of silence at 6:01 p.m. Central, the exact time at which the fatal bullet that ended Dr. King's life was fired. As we think about this day, I think it's important that we always remember where Dr. King was focusing his attention, because as you look at the triple evils that he talked about, we have made little progress. Dr. King's daughter, Dr. Bernice King, said, as she spoke about her father's lasting legacy and his unfinished business 55 years after his assassination. Here are the highlights.
My name is Morgan Miller, and I'm a sophomore at the Westminster Schools. I am also a member of the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church, where Dr. King served as co-pastor from 1960 to 1968. For this occasion of the 55th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King, America's greatest freedom fighter.
Today is a very special day in the history of the American experience. Today marks the 55th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King in Memphis in 1968, April 4th. And today, incidentally, is also the day that the former president was indicted.
And so Dr. King may not physically be with us here today, but he still lives. He lives in and through this family. He lives in and through this institution and those who work with me here. He lives in and through many of you and those young people that are here today. But yes, we are in very turbulent and troubling times. And so although an assassin's bullet took his life, today I want to first stand in solidarity with the King Center, with those young people who have dared to leave school, walk out of school, and say we demand common sense, gun responsibility, and the banning of assault weapons. Now is the time to fulfill that particular legislation. And I want to encourage those who are doing that. Do as they did in Montgomery, Alabama. Don't let it just be one day of walkout. I dare you at some point to stay out of school until change comes. Because when young people stay out of school, regardless of the consequence, because they paid consequences in Montgomery, Alabama. Some lost jobs, some homes were risked, some lost lives, but they dared to sacrifice so that the change would come. And if we're going to change the state of this nation and in this world, we are in a season that requires that kind of sacrifice once again.
I am Isaac Newton Ferris Jr., the nephew of Martin Luther King Jr. Today has always been one of a mixed blessing for me. I didn't know Dr. King, but I knew Uncle ML. I was not old enough to really work with him. And on days like this, I always think back as to what it would have been like to actually be able to march with him, to actually work with him. We had such a close family that I know that I would have been able to be involved in it. Secondly, It's also kind of it's a special day for me because this is a day that we can encourage everybody to reflect on his life and his work.
There will be, for decades to come, on April the 4th, people of conscience and commitment will gather to remind the world that on April the 4th, 1968, a human travesty was perpetrated in the event of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. If Dr. King were not my uncle, I would still be a part of that community who reminds the world annually that people like Martin Luther King Jr. should never be forgotten.
To my way of thinking, this was a great time to celebrate and give honors and respect to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose track record is known all over the world, and I certainly appreciate the love that is shown out here today in his honor.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome.